Hi, welcome to She Tells, where everything on this channel is alleged and for entertainment purposes only. Now let's get into it. Who was Michael's biggest hater? Was it other people in the industry? Or was it his counterpart, Prince? Drum roll, please. It was his brother Jermaine Jackson. It all started when Michael was 6 and he replaced Jermaine as the lead singer in the group. Now Jermaine was a good singer, but nothing to write home about. You can find Jermaine's voice on any corner. But as a kid, Michael always wanted to sing in this group. Joe would tell him, "You're just too little, you're just too young, go have a seat." So Michael wanted to prove to Joe he had what it took to be in this group. Michael signed up for the school talent show. Of course, he won. Joe seen this and put him in the group and made him lead singer. Guess what happened to Jermaine? He was kicked to the back with Tito, and ever since then, Jermaine been having a jealousy towards Michael from that day on. In the beginning, the brothers was not jealous. Well, the other brothers wasn't jealous. You know Jermaine was still hating. He never got over the fact that he got swift kicked to the back with Tito, and here and there he get to sing a little part, a one-liner. But in the beginning, the brothers wasn't jealous. They were just happy to be signed. I mean, come on. Them boys worked hard. They worked their tails off and to be signed by Berry Gordy at the time. And let's just keep it real. Back in those days, you can find a Jackson 5 on the corner of anywhere on the corner in Detroit or Gary. So the brothers were just happy and relieved to finally been signed, and all their work has finally paid off. Now, Jermaine, he used to tease Michael all the time. Now, the other brothers used to tease him too. I think it was just strictly brotherly love. That's what brothers do. But Jermaine used to tease him for another reason. And not only was Jermaine teasing him a lot, so was Joe Old Crusty Self. Who was Joe to sit around and talk about anybody like he was some type of beauty king, like he was some type of superstar? You sit here leeching off your kids and live. I mean, I'm not going to say leeching because it wasn't for him and his hard work. They wouldn't be where they was at. But you living your musical career through your kids because you didn't have what it took. So you worked your kids like animals to get to where y'all need to be. But Jermaine was the one that would always call him pizza face and talk about his nose. And so was Joe. Joe would tell him, "Oh, you got a big nose." And all this led to all Michael's insecurity as a young man and as adult. Shoot, for the rest of his life, Michael always been insecure about his looks because the way they talked about him. Now, me personally, I think Michael looked better than all the brothers. Jermaine, he wasn't bad looking, and so wasn't the other brother, but Michael had it, and they knew it. They just didn't want Michael to see what he had. Yeah, Michael had some pimples, but what teenager didn't? There's a lot of teenagers that go through puberty. That's a part of puberty. Some of the brothers probably didn't get pimples, but Michael did. But Michael always been a good looking young man, and Jermaine was talking about him to tear down his confidence out of jealousy, and he always wanted just to be in the front. And so he knew that he could never replace Michael. And he knew that he did not have what Michael had, or he didn't have what it took to be Michael. So what he do? Come for his looks, something that he knows Michael's insecure about. Then on top of that, the brothers was lazy. Oh, they was lazy. While Michael basically carried the whole group. Yeah, they got in the background and did a two-step. You know, Jermaine get to pop his head in here and there like a jack-o'-lantern and sing a one-liner. But Michael carried that group. If y'all go back and watch old videos, you'll see them all dance, but Michael be out there dancing and singing. So the brothers was lazy behind scenes. All they did was sleep with groupies. And then they used to play cruel pranks on Michael, like lock him in a room with prostitutes to try to get his manhood taken. And they knew Michael was more like Catherine. He was a honest, innocent little kid, and he was devoted to the Jehovah's Witnesses congregation. The boys and Joe will be running around sleeping with all these girls. They eating pizza, having pillow fights, while Michael is reading the Bible, reading books, and practicing majority of the time. And then, I mean, come on, they didn't have as much practice as Michael because Michael was the star. And if you was to watch them on TV, majority of the audience would be zoomed in on Michael. So Michael had to be crisp. He had to be perfect. So Michael, he was not lazy. The brothers would get out there and just clap their legs together and do a little robot here and there. But Michael had to carry this lazy group, lazy hating group. Anyways, back to Jermaine. Now, as the boys start to get older, they want to part ways from Motown, but Jermaine stayed. I believe Jermaine stayed. First of all, let's go back. Jermaine married Berry Gordy's daughter, Hazel, and I believe he married Hazel to get up under Berry. And Jermaine stayed once he seen the group was out the way. Well, let's not even say the group, because Jermaine didn't care about the rest of them. He knew that, they were just they was just in the background. It was Michael. Once Michael was gone, Jermaine like, okay, it's my time to shine. I'm going to stay here with Berry, marry his daughter, and pray that Berry put all his time, energy, and resources into me and make me Motown next biggest star, which it didn't happen. Tells Jermaine, look, if you stay over here at Motown, they're going to keep you in a bubble and make you do cover songs. But Jermaine wasn't trying to hear that. Jermaine wanted to become a huge solo artist, and he thought Berry Gordy can do this for him. And with the brothers out the way and all the sucking up he was doing, and plus being married to Hazel, this was the perfect opportunity for him. So he stayed. Joe was like, okay. He took the boys and they formed another group called the Jacksons. So they dropped the 5 and it was just the Jacksons. This time they included brother Randy. And then after that, they had a couple of hits. I mean, the Jacksons had a couple of songs I liked. And then Michael is now growing up and Michael wants to go solo. And Michael wanted to get away from that bubblegum pop image. Michael wanted to do stuff that was more current, like R&B and disco. So he hooks up with the legendary Quincy Jones, and they record the Off the Wall album. That album was the bomb. That album had a lot of hits. People seem to forget how good Off the Wall was because Thriller was so big. But to me personally, Off the Wall is still, in my personal opinion, is better than Thriller. In 1978, Michael Jackson also co-stars with Diana Ross in the movie The Wiz. I'm sitting here thinking like, hold up, Berry, because this is a Berry Gordy movie. You have a whole Jackson over here, married to your daughter Hazel, that's sucking up to you, and you're going to go cast his brother Michael that's long gone from Motown? That's how you know Jermaine wasn't what he thought he was. Because let Jermaine tell it, he's this big star. They didn't even ask Jermaine to come and be one of the dancing crows in that movie. I know Jermaine was punching the air when he seen Michael get that part. Now that the 80s is here, Jermaine finally leaves Motown after sucking up to Berry and marrying his daughter. He then realizes that Motown couldn't do anything for his career, so he signs with Clive Davis. He also joins his brothers again, and him and Michael become close. And then Michael and Jermaine both was working on solo projects. Michael, Thriller, Jermaine, Dynamite. Fun fact, that song Centipede by Reby that came out like in the mid 80s, that song was a smash. That song was actually supposed to be on the Thriller album, but it didn't make the cut. I don't know why, because that song is just the bomb. So he gave it to Reby, and y'all seen Reby take that song to another level. But anyways, back to Michael and Jermaine. Now Michael completes this album, and he asks the the brothers and sisters to come over and take a listen to Thriller. And all the siblings loved it. They knew it was going to be a hit album. Not Jermaine. Jermaine looked Michael dead in his eye and told Michael, this album is garbage and it's not going to sell. What Jermaine really wanted to say is, dang, Michael, you got me again. How you going to sit there and tell Michael that an album that went on to become the best-selling album of all time, still to this day, that it was garbage? That's why every time Michael got on stage to accept awards or even at the Motown 25, he was like, I like to thank all my siblings, including you, Jermaine. He said that because Jermaine hated on that album so bad. Jermaine knew that album was going to be a smash, but he tried to discourage Michael. He wanted Michael to think it was garbage. When he heard that album, he knew his little Dynamite album wasn't going to stand a chance against that album. The Thriller album goes on to take the world by storm. And Michael becomes this megastar overnight. People fell in love with Michael. Jermaine seen this and his Jerry curl just set on fire at this time. That's how Jermaine got that tar on his head, because that curl then finally melted down, and that's how he got that tar. But anyways, Jermaine heated, he's jealous, so the brothers get together and was like, let's go on tour. And we're going to name this tour the Victory Tour, and we'll also do a couple of commercials. And then they sat down, they thought about it, and was like, hold up, without Michael on this tour, we'll only sell 2 tickets, and that will be to Mama and Joe, and we have to give the rest of the tickets away. So they knew without Michael on this tour, that tour would be a complete flop. So they started harassing Michael, stalking him, calling him every day, and Michael would say no every time because he didn't want to do this tour. Like, why would Michael be on this Chitlin Circuit tour when he is the hottest thing on the planet? He is tired of carrying his brothers. Like, we're grown, I'm solo, I'm doing my thing. Y'all need to go off and do your own thing. So they finally get Catherine to convince Michael to go on tour. So Michael, being that he loved Catherine so much and he can't tell her no, he said, okay, Mom, I will do the tour. And plus, it will put some money in their pockets. They can take care of their families, pay child support, and their alimony. So Michael goes on tour with the boys. Behind the scenes, they was jealous because Michael had a personal chef, because Michael was flying on a private jet. First of all, Michael paid for that stuff out of his own pocket. Michael worked hard, so he played hard. So what y'all wanted Michael to put y'all in a private jet, give y'all a private chef? No. Y'all lucky he's there. He didn't even want to be there. So the tour is almost over. And Michael tells the audience and his brothers, which they both were shocked, that this would be his last tour with his brothers, and they've been great. So Michael, after the tour is done, the Thriller album is still going hard. Michael sweeps the Grammys. And when he made his speech, he said, I would like to thank my family, including you, Jermaine, because Jermaine was his biggest hater.
Also, I'd like to thank all my brothers who I love very dearly, including Jermaine.
So he was letting Jermaine know, all that stuff you said about my album, look at me now. So soon as they got home, Jermaine was punching the air. He was punching the air, packing more tar on his head, doing interviews. And in all those interviews, Jermaine would say, if it wasn't for the Jackson 5, it wouldn't be no Michael. Wrong. If it wasn't for Michael, it would not be any Jackson 5. I believe y'all solely got signed off of Michael. The rest of y'all, you can find y'all on the corner. If it was not for Michael, it would not be no Jackson 5. And then on top of that, he was so jealous of Michael. He was jealous of every little thing that Michael had going on in his life. Like I said earlier, he was jealous of that monkey Bubbles. He was jealous that the monkey had more clothes than his kids. Like, you a whole grown man. Michael's not responsible for buying your kids clothes. Are you really that jealous that the monkey had 2 more pairs of overalls than your kids have? That's not Michael's responsibility. He was just jealous of everything Michael did. I believe all that tar and all that garbage or whatever that was he was packing on his head was driving him crazy, because Jermaine was just crazy with the stuff he was doing. Before we go any further, here's some scandal and rumors about Jermaine Jackson. Not only was Jermaine a hater, he was also a cheater. He had multiple affairs on Hazel and had outside children, which Hazel helped raise one of them. Then Jermaine decided to cheat on Hazel with some lady out the rehab, and Hazel couldn't take it anymore, and she kicked him right to the curb where he belonged, and back to mommy's mansion Jermaine went. Then he stole his younger brother Randy's wife, had 2 children by her. Now their kids are brothers and sisters and also cousin. And it's alleged that he had a 1-year affair with Whitney Houston. After a while, Whitney saw through Jermaine's greasy head lies, and she kicked him to the curb where he belonged. And the last rumor is Joe Jackson had a meeting with all the brothers and LaToya and told them to get off their lazy, sorry keisters and go get jobs and stop living off of them and Michael. They was tired of paying for child support, cars, mansions, alimonies, grease for Jermaine's head, and everything else expensive and luxury that they loved to have but didn't work for it, and told them to stop begging. And those are the rumors of Jermaine Jackson. Upon the release of the album Bad, a feud broke out between the 2 brothers, Michael and Jermaine. L.A. Reid would write about this in his book titled Sing to Me. He said Jermaine basically was jealous that Michael dominated the 80s with the albums Off the Wall, Thriller, and Bad. Jermaine was quoted saying,
"It should have been me, not him! It's not fair!"
That was supposed to be me. That's why I stayed at Motown. I had plans, but Michael beat me to them. And sure, Michael wanted to make sure it was only him and nobody else. Now, Jermaine, Michael can't stop what's for you. It just wasn't meant for you, Jermaine. And you never accepted that. Yes, you had some talent, but you could not perform at the level that Michael performed. It was only a few that can even reach that. I think Janet could, but she's still like, Janet was hot, but she still wasn't no Michael. And you're always saying that Michael made sure didn't nobody else in the family get through the door. Hold up. Janet came through the door. She did it by herself. She didn't need Michael. You wanted Michael to take your hand and guide you through your career. You wanted Michael to help you blow up your career. Michael is a grown man who got his own responsibilities, who has his own career. He carried y'all sorry selves through the 70s, and he is tired. And the early 80s. He's tired, Jermaine. Jermaine spent the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and even to this day, blaming Michael for his career not popping. Jermaine, you just didn't have what it takes, and it was not meant for you to have a career because you're such a dirtbag. Before we go any further, I would like to tell y'all some of Jermaine's achievements. Jermaine had a few hits in the 80s that did chart and that was good. And he also discovered the band Switch in the elevator, took them to Berry Gordy, and this group had the iconic brothers Tommy and Bobby DeBarge, which led to the rest of the family getting signed and more hits to come. He also co-wrote on one of Whitney Houston's first albums, and that's the achievements of Jermaine Jackson. Now this is what pushes Jermaine and Michael rivalry to the boiling point. L.A. Reid states in his book, Jermaine was signed to him and Babyface in 1989. Jermaine leaves from California and he picks up and moves all the way to Atlantic City to start working on his album. Jermaine said L.A. Reid and Babyface promised him a hit album that would put him in the rankings of Michael or past Michael all the way up. One day, Reed gets a random call from Michael while they're in the studio, and he says, "Hey, I need y'all to come to LA and work on my album." They tell Michael, "Well, we're out here right now working on Jermaine album." Michael, like, basically, that can wait. I insist that y'all come to LA and help me work on my album. So what did y'all think LA and Babyface was going to do? Pass that up? It was Michael Jackson, the biggest star on the planet, and they did not want to miss that opportunity of working on one of Michael's great albums. So they jumped on the first thing smoking and headed all the way to LA. Now Jermaine did not know about this, but when Jermaine found out, they said Jermaine cried for 2 weeks straight. So when Jermaine finally dried his eyes, picked that tar head up off the floor, and he got a pen and he went in the studio and he wrote a diss song towards his brother Michael called Word to Bad. The song basically took jabs at Michael's looks, his skin color, and it called Michael selfish about 50 times. I guess Michael was selfish for not helping Jermaine's career for the last 2 decades. But Michael got word of it. He wasn't really worried. He just had it scrapped. He had it pulled. Come on, it's Michael Jackson. Michael had weight in the industry. So Jermaine's album was just scrapped. That song was definitely scrapped. I never heard that song on the radio. If you heard that song on the radio, jump in the comments and tell me you heard that song on the radio. I never heard Word to Bad on the radio. But anyways, Jermaine goes on later down the line and does an interview, and he says, "Hey, everything I said in that song wasn't true. We were just having a little brother rivalry, a little tiff, and that's that." So Jermaine went home and he still was mad. Oh, Jermaine was mad. He still was hating. But Jermaine also realized that Michael was the hand that was feeding him and he was biting it. And why I say that is because Michael took care of Joe and Catherine, which took care of all the other siblings that was not working. So without Michael money, no more children, no more alimony payments, no more grease for your head, no more women, no more splurging. Michael was paying for all that. And if Michael cut off the dough, to the welfare line, greasy head go. And he knew that. So he recanted his statement. And the brothers eventually started getting on good terms, I guess, working together a little bit like in the future. And Jermaine had his back during that trial for the child stuff that Michael was going through. But some folks would say Jermaine still was jealous. But like I said in the LaToya video, the Jackson family was a very, very classy family. They knew how to smile in front of the cameras and fight like cats and dogs behind the camera. Like the Jacksons was very conservative, even though those brothers was doing the most. But nobody didn't know about these type of things back then. In the 90s and early 2000s, Jermaine was still making albums, doing interviews, and writing more books. Michael passes away sadly in 2009. Jermaine found ways to make money off of that, like writing more books and doing whatever interview he can beat LaToya thirsty ass to. And this concludes the video on who was Michael's biggest hater. If you like this video, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And also let me know how you feel about Jermaine in the comments. Until next time.
Anymore. Can't you get that through your greasy head?